The Cleveland Guardians went to Chicago on Friday and took care of business, but the rest of the weekend, they look like a team that doesn't have an identity crisis, but they just don't know where they are, and they're not whole. And we have to talk about why the Guardians are that way and if they'll be able to fix it this year.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Justin Lada, and welcome to this edition of Locked On Guardians, your only daily Cleveland Guardians podcast. Coverage team every day from the majors, the minors, the draft, everything in between. No Jeff Ellis today, just me. I've been covering the Guardians minor league system for 19 years. I've been hosting the show with Jeff for the last 4. On today's show, we'll get into some promotions in the minors and some draft pick debuts and what those mean and what we're watching for there. We'll talk about where the Guardians go from here in terms of the last stretch of the season and the where they are on the standings and what they're going to need to do to get where they want to go. But we're leading off today's show, talking about what to do when the pieces of the puzzle just don't fit. And that's where the Guardians are right now. The piece of the puzzle just do not fit. Today's episode of Locked On Guardians brought to you by FanDuel. Join in all the action at FanDuel.com to play daily dingers. Make your free pick on who's hitting a homer this season. And yeah, Friday night was a really fun game. The offense stepped up. Parker Messick got the mid of the 7th inning. He pitched really well. They did everything right on Friday. And that was what they should have done. I focused so much Thursday night. I stayed up late Thursday to watch the end of that Red Sox, White Sox back and forth affair that was just, ridiculous. And what I said was, well, the White Sox lost this game, but they kept punching back. I mean, they did blow some leads to the Red Sox. The Red Sox were down for a lot of that the tied it up. The White Sox would go back in front. So, it was 7-7 in the 9th inning. Then it was 9-7 White Sox. And then it was 11-9 White Sox. And then it was I think the Red Sox won 13-11 or 14-13. Either way, the White Sox had tons of leads on Thursday over the Red Sox, only to go deep into extra innings, use their entire bullpen and lose and be swept by the Boston Red Sox, who are just absolutely on fire right now. And, Jeff had some good comments on Twitter that I know people, don't want to hear. This is just how the craziness of baseball season goes. But the Red Sox right now are having some incredibly fortunate. I'm not saying they're not playing well, but they are having an incredibly fortunate second half. So they have, I believe, during this stretch, they're like they lost 2 or 3 of the Athletics over the weekend at home after that great White Sox sweep they had at home, but they have the highest left on base rate in the majors during this stretch they have, where they've won like 31 of like 38 or something crazy. So they're stranding runners at a pace that is just not going to keep up. It's just unsustainable. And they have the highest batting average on balls in play as a team. That doesn't mean they're not good hitters, not hitting the ball hard or doing whatever, but they have something like a 500 average on balls in play during the stretch, which is absurd. It's just incredibly absurd what they're doing. So the White Sox got swept. They were reeling. The Guardians were in Chicago Thursday evening after their game at home on Thursday, and the White Sox were still playing in Boston with how that game was going. The White Sox didn't get back into Chicago until very late. So, they were tired, and they also had their entire bullpen fried, right? So the Guardians did what they should have done Friday night. They went out, and they took advantage of a team that was tired. And, the White Sox, guess what they did Friday night? Will Venable made a second trip to the mound in the first inning. In that inning, didn't realize that he did, and he had to take out his starter, Noah Schultz, after 1 inning, after a bullpen that was fried from the night before. And the Guardians added on. They hit a grand slam. Angel Martinez had the great night. They did what they were supposed to do. They took care of business. And after that, it went back to more of the same. Gavin Williams on Saturday, good, not great. I should say very good. I mean, was he up to the standards he was doing before, where he was having, 10, 11, 12 strikeouts and no or 1 walk? No, he only had 7. He didn't go 6 innings, and he walked a couple of batters, but he was fine. Gavin Williams was not the problem. He did more than enough to win. I know some people wanted to say, why don't you leave him in? I think that's one of those there's those 2020 hindsight decisions, right, where you're trying to preserve these pitchers, because we talked about this multiple times. I think the Guardians are trying to get these guys down the stretch and hopefully into October with gas left in the tank. And if you start a new bat over 100 pitches, and I also want to go back and say the Guardians, I've seen this practice in person. They don't necessarily look at pitch counts so much as the times they get up and down. So maybe it doesn't matter as much as starters because they're starters, but they took them out before throwing more than 100 pitches to a final batter. So it is what it is. You brought in Colin Holderman, who again has been by far the Guardians' best non-Cade Smith reliever this year. I think Hunter Gaddis has picked things up quite well. I know he's had his hiccups too, and we're going to talk about all that. But for the most part, Colin Holderman has been very good this year. 1.78 ERA before the break, a 3.27 after. But in leverage spots, I mean, look, in high leverage situations this year, teams are hitting 0.45, 0.87, 0.45 against him in 14 innings, which you would call late and close situations. Runners in scoring position this year against Colin Holderman, 213, 315, 255. He is turning these guys into, Gabriel Arias type hitters, or even worse than that, honestly. First half Stephen Kwan, I would say, is what he's turning them into. He picked a bad night to be bad. He was all over the place. He hit batters. They had a bloop single that if it had gone a couple inches to the right, it's a foul ball. That's just the way it's gone on. And then on Sunday, and they lost that game because the offense couldn't punch back enough. But, it's kind of out of reach at that point. And then Sunday, you had the rain delay, in which, and the rain delay for Sunday is kind of throwing a lot of stuff out. Not that it really mattered, because the bullpen actually was pretty good on Sunday in terms of results, except for Craig Yoho. Craig Yoho came in, and he had a bad day. And he had a bad day at home earlier this week. 4 walks, 2 hits, a home run that put the game out of reach at that point for them. Everybody else, though, Tim Herron, everybody else had to cover innings, right? You only got the bullpen had to cover 7 innings and 8 if they would have won or got to the 9th inning. They walked 9 batters. 4 of them belonged to Craig Yoho. Holderman walked the batter, hit a batter again. Sabrowski walked 3, but he got 2 outs and no damage was done. Gaddis walked a batter, but he got 5 outs. Tim Herron got you 5 outs, and I believe he hit a batter. It wasn't perfect, but you want to know what the bullpen bent, but they didn't break except for Craig Yoho. He was the only guy, which is hard to do because that's what happens when you have a bullpen game, is that all it takes is one guy to be out of whack and the game is over. That's why bullpen games are very hard. But you want to know what? The White Sox had the same problem. They had to cover 8 innings out of their bullpen as well. It's also been taxed, also hasn't been good this year for different pieces and parts, and they were better. They brought in a rookie, Hagen Smith, for his first career game. He walked 4. The Guardians didn't get a hit off him. The Guardians didn't score a run until the 9th inning off Trevor Richards when it was a sac fly off Jose, which, again, good, not great. Jose had two hits today and a sac fly. He had a good day, but he didn't have a Jose Ramirez day. He stole a base. He did good things. The power just is not there, which is, going to be expected at this point. He's not going to have a lot of power, but he had a good day overall. And this is what happens to the Guardians. So they didn't make an error on Sunday outside of the walks and the wild pitches, which gave the White Sox extra opportunities, but it was only Craig Yoho who allowed those to come back to burn them. Sure, the White Sox probably should have done more damage against the Guardians. The Guardians also should have done more damage against the White Sox on Sunday. The Guardians had 8 walks, 4 of them from Hagen Smith. But guess what? They didn't get a hit off him. Craig Yoho gave up 2 hits and a homer. The Guardians had chances off that White Sox bullpen that has not been good, that is gassed. They just didn't get it done. They played good defense on Sunday. Angel Hanao threw out a runner at third base on a perfect relay from Chase to Lada with Tim Herron in the game. Absolutely knew that. Their defense was good on Sunday. The White Sox made an error in the first inning. They booted a ball, and Stephen Kwan scored. That gave the Guardians a free run, and they only scored 2 after that, besides the walks. So the Guardians' offense didn't capitalize, and this is the problem with the Guardians, right? Friday night, they put it all together. They did what they were supposed to do, but Saturday, Colin Holderman, who's been one of the best relievers not named Cade Smith in the team, he picked a bad night to have a bad night. The offense didn't really do enough. On Sunday, it was Craig Yoho, and again, understandable if things got blown out the water because it was a weird game with the rain delay, which I'll talk about in a second because I know some people had a problem with. We'll talk about that in a second, though. But the White Sox faced the same conditions. they got it done. They scored 4 in the third inning off Craig Yoho, and that's all that it took. The Guardians offense didn't punch back. The bullpen, gave the White Sox chances. The White Sox didn't take advantage of it, but now they did the Guardians. And that's the problem, is that on the nights this team pitches well, they don't hit. On the nights they hit well, sometimes they don't pitch. There's also defensive stuff. I'm running out of time, running out of memory space to figure out how many times I've said this, where the team is just discombobulated. They don't seem to have all the pieces of the puzzle fitting on one given night. And they clearly think that defense has been a problem. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute, where the Guardians go from here, where the division is, what they got to do against the White Sox, what they got to do against the Tigers, because suddenly everything in the AL Central is in play, which is a good and bad thing for the Guardians. A big thank you to our friends at Amazon for today's limited break. This back-to-school season, you want to spend less on your kids with Amazon, because the back-to-school shopping experience can be very crazy. You get those lists, and you've got a couple of supplies for items. You got to get your kid clothes, lunch stuff, tech, and then all those other things add up that you just don't see coming. All of a sudden, the price is through the roof. My wife and I just picked up some books for her classroom this week from another teacher who was kind enough to give them away, and still gave her something, because teachers spend money on their own classroom. And I know parents also struggle too, getting the kids the stuff they need for the entire school year. So everyone's got to work together to make sure the supplies that we need, because it could all be done in a better way, but this is how we have to get through things. And we're all looking to save money and help each other out when it comes to classroom costs for teachers, parents, kids alike. So remember, Amazon's back to school low prices. You can spend less on your kids, because every dollar you don't spend on them is a dollar you haven't spent on them. Shop back to school at Amazon and spend less on your kids. I want to thank you, as always, for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever that it is that you get podcasts. If you want more, if you want places to gripe about what's going on with this team, you want to commiserate with other Guardians fans, myself, Jeff, and other listeners of the show, you can check out the Everydayer Club. It gets you access to ad-free versions of the show on audio wherever you get your podcasts. So you'll get your own RSS feed for an ad-free version of the show wherever you listen. But you also get access to the listener Discord, which includes all of the Everydayers across Locked On. So you could run in and check out the Cavs message board, or the Browns. I think the Browns might have one. I think Ohio State. I don't know. There's a bunch of them out there. If our network has a show, they probably have a Discord you can jump into, not just Guardians. So that's a lot of fun there. You can check that out at lockedonguardians.supercast.com. Check the link in your show notes to learn more. I believe we're still doing a 7-day free trial when you sign up. So check that out when you get a chance. All right, let's address the rain delay from Sunday too, because I know some people were wondering about that too. And Stephen Vogt said that Major League Baseball makes that call before the game starts. I thought I was under the impression that was the home team, but I could be wrong. Probably in communication with MLB for all those things, but there was really no good way to address the rain delay and the weather on Sunday. First of all, the White Sox had to deal with the same exact thing as the Guardians, so there was no unfair advantage. The White Sox lost their starter after one inning. The Guardians did as well. Both teams had to use a shaky and fried bullpen, which one bad reliever for the Guardians. The White Sox didn't really crack until the end. So they both faced the same conditions. The White Sox won. That's what good teams do. We always say on the show that good teams find a win, bad teams find a way to lose. The Guardians are finding a lot more ways to lose than win these days, and the White Sox are not. As I said, the White Sox, even though they lost that game on Thursday against the Red Sox in extra innings in a bad way, they kept fighting back. And that's exactly what they showed this weekend against the Guardians. They got blown out Friday because they got in late and they had a fried bullpen. They got blown out Friday night. And then Saturday and Sunday, they came back and they were the more complete team. They capitalized on opportunities that the Guardians did not. They were the ones that fought back. They showed more of a pulse than the Guardians, or they're more connected. I don't know. But again, that game started. It was a long rain delay. They didn't start again until 5 o'clock Eastern time. And that game, I think was let's see what the official rain delay was. I'm sure they have it in here. Official rain delay was 2 hours and 33 minutes. So let's say they never even play first pitch. You're not going to start that game till 4 o'clock Central on Sunday, getaway day. And I understand both teams have off days on Monday. You could have played at 4 o'clock on Sunday, I suppose. I don't think there was really a good solution there. It is what it is, and both teams had to deal with it. So I don't have any problems with that. I have a problem with the Guardians just not responding to when things get tough, and just some odd decisions. Again, the bullpen overall is solid. The bullpen in the second half, for what it's worth, their ERA is near the bottom at 5.13. That's not including today's game. They don't have a good ERA in the second half. They're fielding independent pitching, which is walks, strikeouts, hit by pitch, home run. The Guardians have had a walk problem. They've had a hit by pitch problem. They've had a home run problem for a little bit. 382 FIP, which is 10th in baseball. Metrically, if you look at them defensively, which we've called out the defense, well, guess what? By every metric on defense, they are a top 5 defense. By outs above average, they are 6th. Defensive run save, they are 8th. If I look at just straight errors, though, they have the 11th most errors in baseball. So they're kind of middle of the pack, but towards the top of it. Not great. And guess what? In the second half, you won't believe me, but in the second half, the Guardians are a middle of the pack offense when it comes to run scoring and run production. They have scored 85 runs, 88 if you include Sunday, and 99 WRC plus. So one below 100, which 100 is league average, and WRC plus is weighted runs created plus. It looks at how runs are created, taking like weighted on base average into account, which doesn't do, like, you think about on base percentage, right? And a walk contributes to on base percentage. Hit by pitch contributes to on base percentage. A homer, a single, all those things, they all go into the LB peak average. Everybody understands on base percentage. It's how many times you get on base and your plate appearances, all that kind of stuff. So weighted on base average takes into account a double, a triple, and a homer as much better outcomes each time you move up than a walk. A walk is not the same as a home run. A home run has more offensive impact than a walk. On base percentage treats them the same. And WOBA is a big part of how you calculate WRC plus. So the Guardians are 12th in baseball in the second half at 99. That's one below league average. 100 is the baseline. So the Guardians have a decent bullpen. They've had a great rotation all year. They have a decent offense, but they're not playing well. The puzzle pieces are just not fitting together for them right now. Like I keep saying, the days they hit, they don't pitch. The days they pitch, they don't hit. Sometimes they don't play good defense. Sometimes they pull a safety squeeze with a runner on third base who's Rhys Hoskins, and he gets tagged out of third base for not sliding. Those are the little things that make a huge difference. One of the things too that, Jeff mentioned this, and I don't want to steal his thunder because he'll be talking to you solo on Tuesday's episode, but all the pieces here we're looking at in terms of defense and even the bullpen to an extent is where things are a year ago. We keep saying that this is a better team than it was a year ago. And on paper, that's 100% true. But let's look at the small margins that they have lost over the last year. So if we just look at it defensively, okay, Brian Rocchio is a better defensive second baseman than Travis Bazzano, full stop. Gabriel Arias is a better defensive shortstop than Brian Rocchio, full stop. Carlos Santana was here most of the year last year. He's a good defensive first baseman. Manzardo had some good moments, some improvements, but he's not great. Rhys Hoskins is an awful defender at first base. So if you look, that's 3 positions that have changed in the last year. Rocchio's been playing good at short. Brito was here for a time at second, didn't play well. Bazzano's defense has been below average. He needs to get better. And you see that Angel Henao is playing more second base. There's some platooning going on, which I can still get into. The Guardians clearly think defense matters, and Henao showed it on Sunday in that relay. The defense is not bad, but it's taken steps down towards average. Same with the bullpen. Hunter Gaddis has been good, not great. Colin Holderman in the second half has been not great. He was great in the first half. He's been good. In the second half, Cade Smith's been good. But you don't have Matt Festa of a year ago, who, the numbers were fine last year. He was a serviceable reliever. You could bring in down a couple of runs to chew up some innings, keep you close. Tim Herron is not the same guy he was in 2024. Eric Sabrowski has totally lost everything since the injury. Franco Alamon, which we can still talk about too, was pushed to 40 pitches on Friday, which was weird, and there were some weird things going on. He's been up and down. All those pieces, and Emmanuel Clase, and they didn't have Emmanuel Clase when they went on their great run in September a year ago. but everybody's just a little bit more average. Everything's kind of downgraded a little bit. And you take away Craig Albanese, who was votes number 2. He trusted. Not that he doesn't trust Tony Arnerich. They're twins for what it looks like. So you better trust them. But you lose, your top lieutenant, the guy who's been giving you advice and runs a lot of things. They lost Kai Correa, who was the infield defensive coach and the field coordinator. Well, now that's Andy McKay and Rugi Odor, who's the third base coach. They're splitting those duties. Andy McKay is new to the organization. Tony Arnerich is new to the organization. They're blending a new staff together. And you see what I mean? You're blending new things together a lot, and things just aren't fitting. Like, it just seems like this team hasn't gelled. And we're getting so late in the season, you wonder, is that going to happen? Is this who they are? Like I just said, I was watching the bullpen pitch on Sunday, and I said I'm going to throw a lot of this out on Sunday because of the rain delay. It's not fair to zone in on the relievers that much on Sunday because they're trying to cover 8 innings, and they're trying to get 5-6 outs because you got to cover 8 innings, and everybody's got to pitch in this game. Everybody. So I think it's a little unfair to sit there and complain about all the things the bullpen did. Now they walked a lot of guys, and I just expect them to walk guys. I expect them to make a mistake. That's the identity. The identity right now is Parker Messick's going to give you a chance to win. Gavin Williams is going to give you a chance to win. Tanner Bybee is going to give you a chance to win. Joey Cantillo is going to get you 5 innings, miss some bats. He might frustrate you, but he's going to give you a chance to win. We'll see what happens with Foster Griffin long term. I'm not really going to focus on that too much right now. You're starting pitching at least 4 out of 5 times is probably going to give you a chance to win, as I've said this year. They are a team that has good starting pitching. The bullpen's going to walk guys. It's going to get in trouble. The offense may or may not show up. The defense may make a mistake, and they make multiple mistakes. That is the identity of this team right now, and that is not good enough to be a division winner. I don't know if it's good enough to be a wild card team. It might be in this weird race. I don't know. All right, we'll talk about the standings, where the Guardians go from here, some other things I think they're focusing in on, and then we'll also talk about promotions and debuts that are happening in the minors to wrap up this episode. Locked On Guardians is brought to you by FanDuel. If you think you know who's hitting a home run today, baseball fans, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. Easy to play. You just make your pick. It's for free. Who do you think is going to hit a home run in their game? So if you're right, you receive a profit boost to use in your next bet for a chance at extra innings. And best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the season. Daily dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with everyday games. So if you're following your favorite team, you're keeping an eye on matchups across the league. Every game has somebody capable of going deep, and now you get the chance to make your prediction before first pitch. I took Jordan Walker against the Phillies on Monday because Andrew Painter's pitching. He's been struggling, and honestly, my fantasy team could use more Jordan Walker home runs at this point. As for the Guardians, still plus 350 to win the AL Central on FanDuel. So some of the money pushing there still says the Guardians are second to the White Sox, even though they fell back between the Tigers and the Twins on Sunday. So some people still think they're buying in, or at least to a certain point on the AL Central. So if you're ready to play your game today, join all the action on FanDuel. It's FanDuel.com to play daily dingers. Make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball. Swing for the fences on FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. And running a business should not feel like you're trying to connect systems all over the place that aren't designed to work together. You can't have this one app that does accounting, something for inventory, another for sales, and none of them work together, right? That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software, brings every part of your businesses together in one powerful platform. So sales, accounting, inventory, marketing, all connected together in one place, helps your team move faster. You stay organized. You focus on growing your business instead of managing individual pieces of software. The best organization knows that success, it's not just about talent. It's about having everybody work towards the same goal. True in sports like it is in business. And boy, the Guardians certainly have a roster full of guys who I think are talented. They're certainly talented enough to be better than they have been. But guess what? They're not all working together. All the pieces aren't quite fitting right now. So they need something to pull them together like Odoo that can make all the pieces fit and work together in the same direction. Great organizations win because operations matter. That's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. Keep up with all the things that are going on with the Guardians. Frustrating, call-ups, injuries, whatever happens. We got you covered here on Locked On Guardians every single day. And hey, if you don't want to watch the games, you just want to hear some analysis about how things are going, and you'd rather condense 3 hours of frustration into a half hour, we got that covered for you. Subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell, That'll get you notified of one of our episodes go live, as well as reaction to games and reactions to whenever moves happen. And then make sure you're auto-downloading all your favorite audio platforms so that you keep the show in your feed too. And honestly, if you skip an episode, whatever, you're frustrated, I get it, or you're busy. But if you auto-download and it stays in your feed and you don't listen, it still helps the show out. So if you're even a part-time listener, we will take that. Just download it, and you're helping us out, right? All right, so where do the Guardians go from here is what I want to get into here. And I want to get into some platoon stuff and some other things. So on Hell and Now, clearly what they had in mind here, I think, made sense for why they brought up Hanau, right? Who, by the way, has been a breath of fresh air. He has been fantastic so far. I mean, he's chasing out of the zone, but he's hitting the ball hard. He's making an impact offensively. He's played a really good defense. He had one bad game or made 2 errors, and that cost him. But it's one game, and he's playing third base, which is a new position to him. But I think he should have made that play anyway. Hanau has fit in great so far. Took his first walk on Sunday. He hit a home run Saturday. Been very exciting to watch so far, and I'm glad for it. He's played third. He's played second. I think he should play some short here. But like Saturday, Jose pinch hit for Travis Bazzana against a lefty. And on Sunday, Travis Bazzana was the DH, and Hanau played second. So clearly the Guardians are looking into more platoons. Like Bazzana struggling against lefties, and he's quite frankly struggled offensively for a while now. He's going through it. And clearly Hanau at second base defensively, we knew he'd be an upgrade, but they're trying for better defense. They clearly see that defense needs to be improved on this team, which is why they brought Hanau up, and Arias was struggling, but Hanau, he's playing second. He's playing third. He can play short if, Rocchio's been good defensively, so maybe they leave him in there, despite the fact that he has just dropped like a rock offensively, which is why I said for next year, I think Hanau should be battling for the shortstop job unless they move Bazzana to the outfield. That's a story for the offseason and whenever next season gets here. So where do the Guardians go from here at this point? So the Guardians needed to win this series against the White Sox in order to come home, or at least by September, have a chance to have the tiebreaker over them and win the season series. They didn't get swept this weekend, so the White Sox do not own the tiebreaker over the Guardians, which is good. But now the Guardians, if they want the tiebreaker over the White Sox, so let's say the Guardians catch the White Sox and they have the same record on the last day of the season, the Guardians would have to either sweep the White Sox and have the same record to win the division, if they're both the same record at the end of the year, top of the division, or if the Guardians lose one game at home to the White Sox, they have to be one game better than them at the end of the year to win the division, if that's who it is at the end. Because guess what? The Twins and the Tigers right now, by percentage points, are ahead of the Guardians. The Tigers are a half game better. The Twins have the same record, but because of the tiebreaker, once again, the Twins have 6 wins to the Guardians' 4 wins. They have 3 more to go in their season series. The Guardians also have to sweep to win that tiebreaker. Luckily for the Guardians, they need 1 win over the Tigers this week to win the season series and the tiebreaker over them. The Guardians, once again, I feel like every series at this point is must win. That was a must win over the weekend. They didn't win it. Every game is going to be must win at this point. These are the final 3 games with the Tigers. You win 1, you take the season series. You have to sweep the White Sox next month. You're going to have to sweep the Twins in Minnesota in September to win that tiebreaker too. They're not going to win all these tiebreakers. They're not. And then, after Detroit, who, by the way, is playing great. They have the best offense in the second half. They trade their best pitcher or their best player, and all of a sudden, the Tigers are hot, which is not a shock, right? They had the team that could do this all year, and they just haven't done it. You get Tanner Bybee and Drew Anderson, Foster Griffin and Framber Valdez, Parker Messick and Kiter Montero, which I know Jeff will break down on Tuesday for you. It's a must-win series. And then you get the Padres, who are fighting for their playoff lives. And then you go to Colorado, which they're not a great team, but they're better than they were a year ago, and they're playing for respectability. Playing in Colorado is hard. Got the Angels, out there. We'll see what happens there. Also, you have the Giants, too, at home, which you better take advantage of them because they stink. The schedule in the second half was supposed to favor the Guardians. They're supposed to have the easiest strength of schedule, but the strength of schedule means absolutely nothing. You know why? That's why I don't buy into the whole record against teams over 500, because it only matters when you play the team. It matters how they're doing when you play them. It doesn't really matter what their record is. Guardians, we've seen this. The Guardians are playing teams when they're hot. The Mets were hot. The Guardians made mistakes. The Tigers are hot now. They're not above 500, but the Guardians are playing the Tigers. And guess what? Tigers are red hot. It matters when you play these teams. At this point, the Guardians, every series is must win for them. I don't know how they're going to all of a sudden get this together. I mean, the starting pitching can certainly go out there and give them chances to win every night, but they got to get productive outs. They got to have RBI groundouts. They got to have sac flies. They can't make errors. They can't walk batters constantly. They can't hit batters. And I know, look, guys are human. Colin Holderman was human on Saturday night. It happens. And he was fine Sunday. But it's just like these guys, they have bad nights when they can't afford to have bad nights. And the problem with saying this team's got to be perfect to win is that you're putting yourself in that position because it's getting late here early. Like there are 50 something games to go. 43 games to go. The deeper this goes, the more this problem combats itself. These guys have to be perfect. There is no margin for error on the roster with the defense, with the offense, and on the schedule. There is very little margin for error. There's still time to turn it around, but the margin for error has been gone for this team. So we'll see what happens. All right, I want to get into some minor league stuff real quick, some quick promotion news. So you saw that Jace LaViolette's going to AA Akron finally. He'll join Dean Curley, Nolan Schubart, a couple of Bennett Thompson, a couple other guys in that draft class. We'll see what happens. I think he was pushed to AA because, he's been playing better. I can't even say he's been playing better recently because he's played 3 games in the month of August because he took a line drive off his knee while he was running. Since July 1st, Jace LaViolette has a 104 WRC plus. He's got an 818 OPS with 6 homers. That's fine, whatever. 41% strikeout rate. I can't even look at August because I said it was 3 games. You want a more substantial size? Since June 1st, 108 WRC plus, 36% strikeout rate, 817 OPS. The strikeout rate is still abominable. I can't believe he's in AA. We'll see what happens. Nice kid, but the strikeout rate is still in rough shape. So he's going to AA. So is Kevin Rivas. The captains get a bunch of guys that are interesting. Dory Fernandez should be a lot of fun. They'll have plenty of left-handed power between Riley Nelson and Anthony Martinez. They'll get Aiden Major. And then you get some draft picks that are going to Hill City. Dayton LaChance is going to go catch in Hill City. Infielder Ben Cleary and Alejandro Garza, who's all of like 5'7". Outfielder Lucas Moore, who is blazing fast, gets to go to Hill City. Eric Descends, the son of Elmer Descends. Parker Coyle is one of the most interesting guys in the draft. He's got some interesting stuff. Barely pitched I think he's the one that barely pitched in college, but he's got interesting stuff. So there are some things. And then Jack Jaziak's going to AAA Columbus. Jack Jaziak's having an interesting year. None of his pitches really grayed out as anything special. Decent sweeper. He gets good extension. Averages 93 with the fastball. That's all, good and well, I think. But he's having a good year, so we'll see what happens. He does a good extension. So he'll go to AAA, and we'll see what happens there. If you're looking for like more relief help down below, like the whole Franco Alman thing, I didn't have time to get into, but there was some weird body language from him on Friday. Daniel Espino has kind of been rough lately. He had I think 2 walks and a hit on Sunday. Velocity is a little bit down. I'm starting to wonder if he's hitting a wall just because he hasn't pitched in so many years, and he's built up a lot of innings here. So I don't think he's like a slam dunk help for the bullpen at this point either. Unfortunately, Slade Ciccone went on the IL, so Alaman's back with right forearm tightness. So we'll see what happens with his role overall. But again, Guardians don't have a whole lot of margin for error, and I don't know at what point you have enough time to make this team a little less discombobulated and make sure that they can perform all facets of the game at this point in the season. I don't know if you can. It's on the players, on the coaching staff. Like I said on Friday, Chris Antonetti said this team wasn't going to all of a sudden change their course of direction because of some trade additions. Now, the Guardians did improve their odds. They went up by 13% for the trade deadline for division chances per Zips. They went up 16% playoff odds. They increased their chances with those trades, but it's the guys who have been here all year that everyone's got to work together somehow to make this work. All right, Jeff will be with you on Monday. He'll talk Guardians Tigers preview. I know he's going to get into some minor league stuff, some guys who are released as well. Probably have some opinions on these draft guys that are going to Hill City. So lots to come to get you ready for that and diving deep into the organization. We want to avoid the frustration of the major league team at times. Thank you all for listening. Please download, rate, review, all that good stuff. It helps. In the meantime, go Guardians go. Let's get some sanity on Monday and play a little bit cleaner going into Detroit. It's a must